I just can't do the time commitment expected from so many games anymore. Let's talk about time commitment and put it into the context of Final Fantasy XIV. I want to talk about what really brought this topic to the forefront of my mind. Like, why am I making this video at this time? So Aion Classic came out a little while ago, which was a game that I played during my childhood, literally like a decade ago in 2009 or so, given that my parents learned very quickly in my younger years that RuneScape was actually Ruinscape, and that World of Warcraft was World of Degenerate Craft. My World of Degenerate Craft subscription was never, well, it ceased to exist. So in 2009, my young, feral teenage self stumbled across Aion. Bam! It had amazing glasses, the ability to make my butt massive, and had a decent set of facial hair. Even at 13, I knew what was going on. But more than that, it had some of the best PvP in any game that I've ever played. And I mean that very genuinely, like ever. Some of the best PvP ever. You could literally take an axe and hack off leveling, dungeons, and every single other aspect of the game, and I'd still have a blast with the PvP. Open world PvP actually made me what you'd... I'm just gonna say it. It made me what you'd call that sadistic 13-year-old nightmare child fueled by your tears, taking out my teenaged angst on anyone while listening to death metal. To say the least, I've grown since then. But Aion Classic just came out like a week or so ago, and I've already folded. I've already dropped my hand on it completely after investing a few hours of the nostalgia trip. If I'm being super honest, was never fulfilled. That itch, that nostalgia itch, still hasn't been scratched, because I gave up level 16 on my chanter because I want to re-experience a melee healer that buffed allies and used healing over time effects, something that I don't really get in Final Fantasy XIV and doesn't really exist in World of Warcraft. It became very obvious very quickly on that it would take an astronomical number of hours just to level, and that was over the weekend with a 30% EXP bonus. I couldn't manage the time investment, and hence this video's topic. When it really comes to any game, MMORPG or not, there's a very important question that people have to ask. And yes, your Steam backlog probably suggests that this is true for any game, but there's an important question that people ask, especially people who are older and like in their 20s like me, because now we're getting a little older now, and now we need to think about things like juggling family commitments, work, school, and much more. And the question is, how much time is this game demanding of me? Is this something that I can actually play? And I don't think that anyone really goes into any type of game thinking, oh gee, I can't wait to download, install, and start playing this so that I can be absolute crap at it. Not even the most casual players I've ever talked to have said that they have no drive or goals to improve. Pretty much everyone wants to improve at the game. No one really wants to be a part of like, oh, I just want to be bad at this. Not really. Actually, I want to say unique to Final Fantasy XIV versus almost any other game out there is that this point goes doubly or triply or pentaso in Final Fantasy XIV, where we have so many more systems that can appeal to a broader audience. We have different systems like housing, hunts, relic hunting, crafting, gathering, glamour, G-pose, golden saucer, and so much more. Heck, even Triple Triad or Lord of Verminion tournaments have their competitive communities. Did you notice, though, that I intentionally left rating out of there just to point it out there? Ha. No one listens to the verbal lists. But we have experts across all these domains, is what I'm trying to say. Housing, in fact, has entire communities dedicated purely to it. Glamour, the 14 equivalent of transmog, is also one of the most hotly discussed topics in the community, with its own community superstars. And they are like mega superstars, which makes Final Fantasy XIV a very unique hotbed of a lot of talent from so many different angles that extends far beyond simply being an exceptional raider. When you contrast it against something like World of Warcraft, when you only define a player as being exceptional by their ability to do a particular raid in a 20-person group, Final Fantasy XIV is like the galaxy brain that completely blows that off of it. That lid completely off. Now, people are going to surely ask, what does that have to do with time? And the answer is literally everything. That is the crutch of the argument. This game is extremely wide in the number and variety of activities it offers to players, and for its width, most of the activities go exceptionally deep. Just try looking over on crafting. Ooh, you'll just go all the way down, because that links into housing, G-pose, it links into even raiding. It's crazy. But if you only want to come to Final Fantasy XIV to raid, which is something many community members do, they skip the stories, cutscenes, they just level one particular job, and they go straight to Savage raiding, and then eventually Ultimate raiding for a super small select few. Ultimate raiding is still very, very hard for people to break into. And I want to say that that is obviously a valid way of playing. Play Final Fantasy XIV the way that you want to play it. That's one of the great things about Final Fantasy XIV. But if you are looking at like that, then you're going to have a much different set of time that you're going to allocate versus someone that's going to level up all jobs, go for all relic weapons, go for housing, go for gold saucer achievements, and mount collection. Like, you're going to invest a dramatically smaller amount of time into that. But in general, if you are looking at higher end PvE content, raids are probably one of the largest time commitments if we're looking at just a single activity. But it's a big Nicki Minaj size, but it definitely is one of the ones where you know what you're getting into from the get-go. So first of all, you have the raid group that might expect 4 hours a week, 2 days a week, like my group. Obviously, that will vary depending on the group to be, even for some groups that I've seen, 6 hours a day, 7 days a week until the tier is cleared. Or even more crunch-like. I hate using the term crunch for the game, but there's no way to describe it other than that in my brain. But if they're trying for world first clear, they basically crunch time and try and get that raid done and basically grind it non-stop until they get it cleared. And no, that is not an exaggeration. I've seen it firsthand in our community, World of Warcraft. I guess it really started there, but it's definitely here in 14 too. But then you have tomestones, which have a weekly cap of 450 usually. This is one of the very rare weekly lockouts in this game that I say actually is something to keep your eye out. Right now, it has been doubled to 900 because it's the end of the expansion, which is actually exceedingly abnormal. During the expansion, we will not really see 900 tomestones all that often. Primarily when you are in a raid tier, it's going to be 450. Outside of that, if you are just savage raiding and that's all you're doing, that's all you really need to do. You're pretty sit on gearing. The only real commitments if you're a raider is the tomestones to 450 cap and then raiding. That's going to get you your best in slot. Of course, there are optimizations that you can do, such as do you want to grind the normal raid gear drops to get normal raid gear to prog savage, giving you a little bit of boost, or do you want to get crafted gear and pentameld it? Maybe grinding extreme trials for a weapon drop, since that could be a big boost temporarily. But for the most part, when I've had real life ramp up and I've basically had to quit playing, I logged on for maybe 4 or so hours of raid, and then maybe an hour or so of that week to cap tomestones, doing an 18 or so minute long run of expert roulette. But in reality, I even stopped doing those just because we have another system in our game called hunt trains, which let me cap insanely quickly. Also remember though, but like when you have best in slot pieces for that particular job that you're raiding on, you don't even need tomestone gear anymore, and so you don't even need to do the tomestone anymore, meaning that you can literally raid log for 4 hours a week, and if you choose to not do anything else, that's okay, and you won't become suboptimal for it. We have no painful daily or weekly grinds where it's like you get punted in the face if you don't do it. But in stating something like that, I really fear that I'm oversimplifying the range of 14, which is why I mentioned the breadth and the depth of the game's activities from the get-go before I mentioned the raiding. Now, if you add in mount farming onto that, like extreme trials, depending on RNG and how long it might take you 99 clears of diamond weapon or emerald weapon and so on, it could be potentially months of time in order to get the land waffle mount. Now, if you add relic hunting to get all the Shadowbringers relics, I got all of them before the Time War nerf, and I don't regret it because that was a goal of mine to complete them without the nerf steps, but that was actually an incredibly large time sink. I don't regret it, that was my goal, but oof, that was lots of time. Now, if you add housing, crafting, gathering, the beast tribe quests, glam, G-post, gold saucer, and the rest, then you can extremely trivially max out your playtime for a morbid amount of time. The range in Final Fantasy XIV, I have to be honest, is actually truly incredible, because if you look at the seemingly innocuous activity like housing, then you peel back that curtain, the level of skill, design complexity, color palettes, some of them even use actual design tools for like layout planning and the color palettes and where they're gonna lay out furniture. It's actually like super hardcore. And color palettes, yes, color palettes, because you can dye the housing items. You can actually use unique glitches and placements of items and like layering, and quickly you see why some of the top housing experts can charge 100 million or more gil for a commissioned house. But here is the absolute kicker. Outside of weekly raid and tombstone lockouts, you aren't really beholden to any particular weekly lockout. Yes, there are some minor lockouts, like you should ideally cash in elegant silver pieces in the Dome and Enclave to double their points, their bonus. Basically, you double what you get from trading them in guild-wise, and you should hit the cap each week, but in general, it's not nearly as much of a concern to fall behind, meaning that most activities in Final Fantasy XIV aren't really time-gated or force you to log in if you don't want to. Like, we don't really have a World of Warcraft Torghast in 14, which is a single activity that you dread to log in and do twice every single week. That makes you hate your life. Like, take tomestones, which people might immediately jump to being like, oh, tomestones are like soul ass. You can essentially obtain them by doing extreme trials hunts, the relic grind, Bojin content, expert roulettes, raids, and honestly much more content, which allows you to fine tune and choose how you are going to earn those 450 tomestones per week. And this is why Final Fantasy XIV is actually a game that I've been able to keep playing in spite of being in school for myself, needing to be there and support my boyfriend, name it, during his PhD defense recently, and in spite of various life events going on. It's flexible and it doesn't make you feel like you're actively being punted for missing a set of dailies or weeklies. And no, World of Warcraft can't relate.